When nature shows its true colors, the soul shivers, and something similar happened. Flight 571 crashed on a snowy hill thousands of feet above the ground, and the passengers who survived this crash had only one option to save themselves: their own family members, and eating the flesh of friends. The story of Flight 571, whether you call it the biggest miracle of the world or the biggest cruelty in human history, but your soul will shudder after listening to this story. This heart-wrenching story begins on October 12, 1972. A chartered plane takes off from Uruguay, a country in South America, which has to reach Santiago, the capital of Chile. Rugby players are sitting in this plane, and their family members, relatives and friends are going to watch their match. There are a total of 45 passengers in this plane, including 9 crew members. This flight will reach its destination in 3 hours. But on the way it will have to cross the Andes mountain ranges. But unfortunately the weather is bad later on. Due to this, the flight is forced to land in Mendoza City of Argentina on the way. This flight stays there overnight and gets ready to take off the next day, i.e. on October 13th. But the problem is that the weather is still bad. But the good thing is that the pilot of this flight has flown 29 times on this route before. Due to this, he has complete idea about how to cross these Andes mountains. Due to the confidence of the pilot, this flight takes off again on October 13th at 2:18 p.m. There is only 1 hour left to reach Santiago from here, and the pilot is completely confident that after 1 hour they will reach Santiago safely. This plane was flying at an altitude of about 18,000 feet and was slowly crossing the Andes mountains. But later the weather worsened, due to which the visibility decreased further, and the pilot was not able to see anything ahead. If the weather had been clear, the pilot would have got an idea of where the plane was by looking at the surrounding hills. But at this time the pilot is dependent only on the instruments of the plane. Now, since the pilot knew that he would reach Santiago in an hour, he kept estimating his location, and after an hour, when he felt that he had crossed the hills of the Andes, he asked the ATC at Santiago Airport for permission to land the plane. The ATC asked if he had crossed the hills of the Andes. The pilot said yes, he had crossed the hills of the Andes. The ATC was also dependent on the location given by the pilot, so the ATC gave permission to land the plane and told the pilot to bring the plane to an altitude of 11,500 feet. At 21 o'clock, the pilot started slowly decreasing the altitude of the plane. As soon as the plane comes down, the pilot sees that the Andes mountains are still rising and there is a huge rock in front. Quickly, the pilot tries to lift the plane up again. But now it was too late. While lifting the plane up, the rear part of the plane hits the mountain and it breaks apart. Due to the rear part of the plane breaking, the seats at the back fly away in the air along with the passengers. And 3 passengers fly away in the air and die. In this collision, the right wing of the plane was also broken, due to which the plane becomes imbalanced, due to which its other wing also hits the mountain and it also breaks. Now only the front part of the plane was left, which hits the glacier below at a speed of 350 kilometers per hour. The plane is completely destroyed. The pilot of the plane is killed instantly. Out of 45 people, 12 have been killed in this incident and 33 people are still alive. But most of them are in a very injured condition and they do not even know that at this time. Where is he? This crashed plane is scattered on some unknown hill of Andes at a height of 3,570 meters from the ground. No one knows whether they will be able to escape from this hill or not. What happened till now was just a small trailer. The real story of this flight will start now. You cannot even imagine what is going to happen to them in the future. These deserted Andes hills are now going to wreak havoc on them. Knowing their further story will send shivers down your spine. One of the injured passengers was Nato Parrot, who had a head injury due to which he went into coma. The problem was that the sun was going to set soon and it was about to be evening. Because of this, the rescue team did not have much time to find them. And if by chance they were not rescued before it got dark, then it would be impossible to spend the night on this snowy hill because the temperature here reaches minus 30 degrees Celsius at night. Soon 4 planes were dispatched for rescue. These 4 planes searched the hills of Andes, but they could not find anything anywhere because the plane had crashed at a place where there was white snow and dense fog, and the plane was also white in color. Due to this, the rescue team was not able to guess the crash site from above. It became night in no time and the rescue operation was postponed for the whole night. The surviving passengers were hoping that somehow they could just spend tonight. Tomorrow someone would save them and they made a shelter in the crashed plane and spent the night. This night was very terrible for them because they had to spend tonight in -30°C. But they have a hope that tomorrow someone will find them and take them away. In this hope, they spend this night somehow. But 5 people are not able to bear this night, and now the number of people who survived reduces from 33 to 28. The next morning on October 14th, the search operation was resumed and 11 planes flew to find them. But the problem was that the crashed plane was not visible in the snowy mountains due to its white color. The rescue team's planes were flying over the survivors, but they were not able to see them below. Due to this, the survivors tried to write SOS with lipstick on the plane to signal the rescue team. But they realized that the lipstick was not enough to write such a big SOS. Due to this, they made a big cross on the snow with their suitcase so that it could be clearly seen by the rescue team from the sky. That day 3 planes flew over them, but unfortunately no one noticed them and this day also passed. The next day, i.e. October 15th, the situation was similar on that day too, but the rescue team was unable to find them. Now these survivors had understood that they were in a very bad situation. Cannot be said when help would come. Due to this, they started making survival techniques from the things present in the plane. They were arranging water drop by melting snow in the sun, but they did not have many options for food. 3 days after the crash, on October 16th, Namdo Parad wakes up from a coma, and as soon as he regains consciousness, he finds out that his mother has died in this crash and his 19-year-old sister is seriously injured. Days are passing by. Help is not being received. The food that was in the plane has also finished. The sunlight is reflecting from the snow and making their eyes blind. Bearing hunger, thirst, and unbearable cold, they had spent 8 days on this hill. Rescue planes would come and fly over them. 8 days after the crash, Nando Parado's sister also loses the battle of life and dies, and on the other hand, after 8 days, the search operation is stopped, because there is a lot of snow there in the month of October. Due to this, such search operations are postponed for 2 months. The officials thought that all the passengers would have died in these 8 days. Due to this, their dead bodies will be found and sent to their families after 2 months. Here the survivors found a radio in the wreckage of the plane. When the survivors turned on the radio, their own news was being broadcast that the search operation of Flight 571 has now been stopped. This news blew the senses of the survivors. Till now they had a hope of being found, but now they were hearing the news of their own death on the radio. There was a ray of hope of being found. That too has been shattered. Now they know that death is certain here. Now either let the circumstances dominate you or face them bravely. They tried to save themselves from the cold by tearing the seats of the plane and stuffing its cotton in their clothes. They wrapped the seat covers around their feet and made shoes to walk in the snow. The biggest problem was food. Now to stay alive they have only. There was only one option left to do something that no one has ever done in history. Just thinking about which makes the soul shudder. He decided to eat the dead bodies of his family members, relatives and friends lying in the snow with whom he had played. However, taking this decision was not at all easy for him. Days were passing one by one. He did not have any plan to save himself. He would sleep inside the broken plane at night to save himself from the cold. But 16 days after the crash, that is on October 29th, nature gave him another shock. He was sleeping at night and suddenly he came to know that a thick piece of snow was breaking off from the mountain and falling down. This avalanche came with such force that the huge amount of snow engulfed his broken plane. His plane was buried under the snow and snow had entered inside the plane as well. Due to this, there was a lack of oxygen for them and 8 more people died due to suffocation and now only 19 people are left alive, but they are also buried under the snow. Takes 3 days for these people to get out of this snow. Now they realize that if they stay here, then everyone will die one by one. It is better to try to get out of this hill and find help. Most of those people were in injured condition. Because of this, they were not able to cross this hill. But there were 3 people who were less injured. Because of this, those 3 decided to get out of this hill and bring help. They took pieces of meat with them for the journey and were given the thickest clothes to protect themselves from the cold. And 33 days after the crash, i.e. on November 15th, these three people set out to find help. While walking, it starts getting dark. Then their eyes fall on the other broken part of the plane. They see the rear part of the plane which had broken and separated. When they go near the debris, they find a lot of food in it. They decided to spend the night in it. This night was good for them in the last few days. They found a battery in the rear part of the plane. They thought, why not take this battery near the body of the plane and activate the communication device installed in it and call for help. But the battery weighed 25 kilograms. It was not possible to take such a heavy battery to the crash site in such a weak condition. Then they thought that they should take out some communication device from the body of the plane and bring it near this battery and activate it, with the help of which they can forget about the rescue team. They tried to activate it for a few days, but they did not succeed. In 69 days after the crash, i.e. on December 11th, another avalanche comes in which 3 more survivors are killed, after which the number of survivors remains only 16. And now these 3 young men, Casas, Paradu and Vigen, set out to climb the glacier without any gear. These 3 started walking towards the west, but they did not know whether they would find any human settlement in the direction they were going or not. They just thought that they had to cross the hill in front and they would get help, and they hoped that they would cross this hill in 3 days. That is why they kept a supply of meat with them for only 3 days. They made a sleeping bag by sewing it with thread. So they would climb the mountain without any gear all day, and at night all 3 would sleep huddled together in a single sleeping bag. Spending the night in the open without any facilities in -30 degrees Celsius was not an easy task. It was already morning on the 4th day while they were walking. But the good thing was that they had now reached the top of that mountain. As soon as they reached the top of the mountain, the ground slipped under their feet. Because after climbing the mountain they came to know that the direction they were heading in for so many days was the wrong direction. The road ahead never ended. Now, since their food supply was very low, they decided that one of them would go back to the crash site and the other 2 would go ahead. Due to this, Vigen returned and Paradu and Canisa continued moving forward. After climbing the top of that mountain, they got an idea of the right path, and both of them kept moving forward for many days, and after a few days they found a small stream of river. They kept walking down the stream, and after walking for 9 days, on December 20th, they saw 3 people on the other side of the river. They were very tired of walking. In the last 9 days, they had hiked 61 kilometers on the mountain, and now their destination was in front of them. They requested them for help, but they left saying tomorrow. They did not get any help that day, but the very next day that villager came back again and wrapped a paper and beetle in a stone and threw it on the other side of the river. Nando Paradu picked up the pen and paper and wrote down everything that had happened. When that villager read that paper, he understood everything, because he knew that a plane had crashed in these hills a few days ago, and people had also come to that area for interrogation, but he was surprised how these people had survived till now. That villager went to the city as soon as possible and shared this information with the army command. And soon the Chilean Air Force arrived to rescue them. Army officers take Parrot and Casa in a helicopter to the crash site, and on December 22, 1972, 70 days after the crash, the survivors are rescued. The condition of these people was very bad. Only 16 people survived after this crash. Their story was really heart-wrenching. But even more dangerous is the survival story of a person who was stuck in the deep sea for 438 days. A small boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean was his home. The open sky under which he had to bear the hot afternoon sun and the cold of the night. A lonely person kept wandering alone in the deserted sea for 438 days, i.e. 14.5 months, hoping for help. This person's survival story will really surprise you. You can see this story in this video shown on the screen. I will meet you there.